Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Wellness Foreplay. We are Dr. Dondi and Marcy Nettles.
Hi,
we are your
guys.
hosts, and we are super excited on this Friday, which we're bringing you episode
14.
I can't believe we're episode 14 into this already.
Either. It's so cool.
But the entire approach here, and let me just give you this little disclaimer, our entire approach here is not to prevent, treat, cure, or mitigate any diseases.
No.
It is to empower you with information so that you can educate yourself to be your best health advocate, because that's really what wellness is all about, is when you take responsibility for your own health and even maybe take back the authority that you've given to other people that took charge of your health. Now it's time to take charge back. And that's what this entire show, every time we go live, is to give to you guys, is to empower you with information.
Yeah, absolutely. So for this whole week, we've been talking about proactive versus reactive.
Yeah.
And after the first episode, we knew that there was two specific areas that we had touched on that we needed to put more information into. The first of those two we covered last episode, and it was all about mental health. And so I would highly recommend you go and find episode 13 that was all about being proactive with your mental health. Because so many people are struggling with that right now. You might even know someone yourself personally that you need to share that episode
Guaranteed.
with. Yeah, absolutely. Because
all of us do.
Right now in this pandemic situation, we're all in a whole different environment, right? And we're not quite sure how to handle it. And so if we can come together and kind of share information, which is what we're trying to do, you can absolutely do that. But first, before we get into what episode 14 is all about, I'm a former police detective, and you?
I'm a former family wellness chiropractor.
And so we've put our backgrounds together so that we can do the investigations for you, so that we can come up with the knowledge that we truly know is the foreplay to your optimal wellness, hence wellness foreplay. Okay.
Right.
And so this week or today, this episode is episode 14, again, talking about proactive wellness, but this is going to now be part 3. And part 3 is going to be all about your mighty immune system. The immune system.
The immune system is super, super important.
And I would say that right now, today, more than ever before, people are more concerned about how their immune system is functioning and how well it is working, because we don't want to be getting sick, right? So this is the proactive thing. We don't want to react. We don't want to wait until we get sick. We want to prevent the sickness from coming, right?
But to your point, there's a lot of people now that are discovering, because they're having to be reactive, they're discovering how ill-equipped their immune system has been up to this point, which puts them in a great opportunity to turn things around, because that's sometimes we realize the shortcomings or the inefficiencies is probably the best way to describe it, of our immune system when we're under attack and it's not responding the way we would hope it did. That's really what this episode is about, is to give you the information to decide to be proactive or reactive, because being proactive is such a better strategy.
Yeah, and so this episode is going to be a little bit different than normal. Normally, we have one topic and we pick 4 questions that we answer during the episode, but we decided that this topic really needed to take a little bit more of a doctor's side, right? And you need to have a little bit more, have a doctor's knowledge behind it, right? Especially a wellness doctor. And since that was your background, we thought that having an actual conversation around your immune system and being proactive, ways that you can be proactive in increasing your immune system and supporting it, would be much more beneficial for you. Instead of us just choosing 4 questions, it would be really good. And so the way we want this conversation to kind of lead is we want to first share with you that there's more than just one part to your immune system. There's actually 3. And so we want to go over that. And then we also want to talk about some ways that you can be proactive in supporting your immune system, and the ways that most people are currently being proactive, because a lot of people are looking and doing great things, but then how you can actually compound those simple things and get an even more optimal wellness journey with your immune system. So when we're talking about the immune system and the importance of being proactive, you've also got to be consistent in the things that you're doing. You can't do things one day and think that you're going to be covered. No, you've got to be consistent in the actions you're taking on a daily basis. And so I mentioned that there's actually 3 parts of the immune system. I want to kind of give you something to visualize a little bit here, okay? So imagine this. We've all had the opportunity to sit on a three-legged stool, right? Do you
Yeah.
remember when you sat on one of those stools that only has the three legs? And almost always, one of those legs was a little bit shorter than the other two. And so you'd kind of wobble around and you're a little bit worried about whether or not you're going to stay on top of this stool. Well, guys, your immune system actually has three different parts to it. And so when you're sitting on that stool, could you imagine taking one of those legs out from underneath your stool? Do you think you could stay balanced and stay on top and you'd
No,
be
no,
comfortable?
no.
No.
Gravity will let you know real quickly.
Eventually, you are going to be toppled off of that stool. And so it's really important to have all three of those legs in place. Not only have them in place, but to have them balanced in such a way that you're not teetering. You're not concerned of falling off. And so when we get into the conversation about the immune system, the three different parts of the immune system, and all I'm going to do is I'm just going to tell you the three names of the three different parts, and then I'm going to let the doctor tell you what it really is and why it's so important that they all be balanced. Okay. So we've got the three different, and they are, you've got the barrier part of your immune system, you have the innate part of your immune system, and then you also have the adaptive part of your immune system. So those are the three legs of the stool that we want to make sure that you are sitting balanced upon for your optimal wellness. So can you tell us more about those three different legs or parts of the immune system?
I'm glad you started with the barrier leg, because most people actually don't realize that the immune system is a three-legged stool. Most people consider it a two-legged stool.
I didn't know that until recently. So I'm so glad for the knowledge.
And the reason being is because the barrier is becoming more known and more talked about, especially with prebiotics and probiotics being on the market, and the new term, the terminology of microbiome is also a new term that people are getting used to, which is where the barrier comes in. Because most people, when they talk about the immune system, even healthcare providers, it's only been recently that, as a former healthcare provider, that I start talking about the barrier aspect. It was usually the innate immunity and the adaptive or the acquired immunity, the two-legged stool. Well, there's no such thing as a two-legged stool, so it wasn't used in that reference. It's now that the barrier, which has become very important, is the other element of the immune system. And then the three-legged stool is a very good visual. Thank you for that. So the barrier, I'll start with the barrier because it's the most recent. Barrier, consider the barrier like the moat around the castle. So the walls of the castle are a way of protecting the castle. The people at the top, at the turrets, shooting arrows down or whatever their form of ammunition is the second layer. And the moat is the third layer, but it's the first one that they encounter.
Right. Okay. So the barrier, so the outside barrier.
It's the first thing that invaders encounter is the barrier, which is our skin from the out. It's the first line of defense. So it's the skin on the outside, but it's also the mucous membranes. So we have mucous membranes in our nose, we have mucous membranes in our mouth and our throat and our esophagus. We have mucous membranes all the way down into our GI tract, all the way out the other end, the south end of the GI system. And so that barrier is very, very important. So it's the mucus layer, the mucous membrane that protects our immune system is the first, the barrier, least known, more talked about more recently in the last decade or so. And then the innate immunity, innate meaning inborn. It's the cells that we have. So we're born with white blood cells. We're born with lymphocytes, which can get into a B variety, T variety. They're specialized. They're kind of like snipers.
Okay.
So they have very specific goals. And then we have the acquired or the adapted immunity, which is even more special. So kind of consider your innate immunity as an overall approach. It's kind of like the bomb, dropping a bomb, which kind of just ends the battle. It's the main defense system that we call upon, our innate immune system. But the adaptive immunity, or the more specifically, and why it adapts, and why the immunity that you get as a result of it adapting is called your acquired immunity. It's kind of, they're specialized cells, like your immunoglobulins, as an example. Or most recently, what we've heard with COVID is antibodies. Yeah. So antibodies are is a specialized cell inside your body that when it comes against an invader and it sees it and it conquers it, it has a memory. It is an acquired memory. You're not born with that memory. It has to actually go into battle to acquire that memory, which is why it's adapting. So it's the adapted or the acquired immunity that you get. So those are the three layers. So again, it's the barrier, which is your first line of defense, your skin on the outside, mucous membranes on the inside. And then you have the innate immunity, which is your white blood cells, the cells that you have circulating. And then your adaptive immunity is like your immunoglobulins, or more specific, like I said, the antibodies, which are they learn how to be defense mechanisms to your benefit, which is part of your immune system.
I'm sitting here thinking about the adaptive, and I know that I got a lot of my adaptive immunity by the way I grew up, right? I was always outside. I was always playing in the dirt. I was always climbing trees. And guess what? I never hardly ever did. I didn't like go in every 5 seconds and wash my hands. You know, a lot of the times it's like I'd go climb a tree and then have my sack lunch outside and eat one, you know, and so I'm sure a lot of my adaptive, which is so important, came from those experiences.
And to that point, it's kind of, consider your adaptive immune system like a muscle. If you don't ever use the muscle, it cannot have any strength. And your immune system gets stronger and stronger and stronger the more you use it. And that's one of the, I would call it, flaws in our logic of depriving ourselves of certain things. Because if we don't have the battle, we can't gain the strength, we can't gain the memory, and we now have an inefficient immune system, which is why so many people are having issues, and why this phenomenon called autoimmune disorders are plaguing our society, plaguing the world. Because in essence, what an autoimmune problem is, or an autoimmune disorder, or an autoimmune condition, whatever you want to call it, is a sign of an inefficient or weak immune system, because it's just attacking randomly. It's not attacking out of learning because it hasn't had the ability to learn. It's kind of like if you never learned mathematics and somebody gave you a math problem, you're like, that's a line and it's an X. I don't really know what that means. And it's some kind of a character. If you don't understand what it is and how to use it, you can't gain the knowledge. And when you can't gain the knowledge, you're kind of ill-equipped when a battle comes. And that's what happens when we deprive ourselves of immunity, because we don't allow our immune systems to function. And it's just it's become a philosophy. When we were kids, I remember my mom kind of freaking out sometimes, you know, did you wash your hands? It's like, yeah, she asked me if I wash my hands when I'm like already wiping my mouth after done eating. It's like, no, I've got dirt underneath my fingernails, but I didn't die from it. It actually strengthened our immune system.
Right, exactly. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for explaining those 3 different parts of the immune system. I hope you guys learned something. If you're learning something different, would love to see in the comments whether or not you knew that you had 3 parts to your immune system, first of all. And this is if you're with us live on Facebook now or watching it as a replay.
Or if you're listening on the podcast.
Just so everybody knows. Yeah, this is kind of a cool setup we have going on right now. We're actually live right now in 3 different places on Facebook, as well as saving this video that we'll upload to YouTube, the Dondi and Marcy Nettles channel on YouTube, and also to podcast platforms. So if you knew all 3, awesome. My hat's off to you because I did it. But if you learned something new, would love to be hearing the things that you're learning. Okay. Now think about this though. Having those 3 different parts of your immune system, can you kind of get an idea on why it's important that you're supporting all 3 aspects of this massive part of your wellness walk? Because without a healthy immune system all the way around and balanced, you're going to have a difficult time fighting off whatever you come in contact with.
Absolutely. And there's very key ways that people go about supporting those 3 aspects of those 3 legs of your immunity: vitamins, minerals, nutrients, people that go after specific things to help that part of their immunity become stronger. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad that you went there, because that's the exact where I wanted to take this conversation next. Was I know, because we do a lot of research on this, right? That's part of the investigation of this, and going and looking and seeing what people are looking for or buying the most of, right? And we found 3 specific things that people are buying. So the top 3 things that people are focused on, and they are so good. This is the ones that most people are implementing right now to help support their immune systems. Do you want to talk a little bit more about those 3 being vitamin C, vitamin D, and zinc? Those are the top 3 being purchased right now. And they have very specific uses. And if you go to, whether you go to let's say you go to GNC, or you go to Vitamin Shop, or you go to high health nutrition stores, though you're going to see other vitamins and minerals in probably pretty good quantity or inventory on the shelves. You're going to see vitamin C, D, and zinc in probably pretty scarce quantities if it's not sold out. And that's because there's people know how to use search engines. They know how to go search things, and they know what the 3 key players are, being vitamin C, vitamin D, and zinc. Some of them will fortify or strengthen a certain part of your immunity, one of those 3 legs, and others fortify and strengthen all 3 legs. So do you want me to talk about anyone specifically to start?
Yeah, let's just go ahead and start with vitamin C, because I think that that's one that most people think of when they think about not getting sick.
Yeah,
it's vitamin C.
Vitamin C, because there's products out there like Emergen-C, which is a big 1,000 milligram dose of vitamin C. Which, by the way, how do you know you're getting too much? Because you have to run to the bathroom. You've got like liquid stuff coming out the south end, which shouldn't be liquid. No. That's the sign your body's going over the top. The bucket is overflowed with vitamin C. It's the natural mechanism of purging what you have too much of. But vitamin C we know is an antioxidant. That's why a lot of people take vitamin C. Vitamin C also provides energy to our cells, and it strengthens our immune system by providing energy to it. But one of the cool things about vitamin C, it's very important in collagen production. Consider collagen kind of like the glue that holds all of your cells together. And it makes it's what, when your collagen system in your body either becomes depleted or starts to break down, it leads to very noticeable things like wrinkles.
Yeah, that's why I'm like,
wrinkles on the skin.
I got to touch my face here. We got to keep the
collagen is very important for that. So why is that important? So vitamin C acts as an antioxidant, which is going to help with vitamin and nutrient efficiency of your innate and your adapted immunity. But because of the collagen aspect of it, it also helps the barrier, your skin. It helps provide the more glue, the tighter the bond is of the cells of your skin, the more impermeable it is, or the greater of a barrier it provides. It also does the same thing for your mucous membrane. So vitamin C is a very key nutrient, very key vitamin. It's an essential vitamin, which is why we need to take it, and our body does not make it, which is why that's how you know something is essential. When something is an essential vitamin, it means your body doesn't make it. You must supplement it. Now, you can supplement it with food, or you can supplement it with supplements. Food is much better because your body recognizes food, and sometimes it doesn't recognize a 1,000 milligram tablet of vitamin C because it doesn't recognize. That's not the natural form. That is the man-made form of a vitamin C tablet.
Absorption is a really big deal, right?
Critically,
because you can be taking these amazing products and it just goes all the way through you, and so it just really ends up to be a really expensive flush of the toilet.
Yeah. Well, here's a key indicator. If you've ever taken a handful of multivitamins, you get I'm not going to mention. You get the multivitamin pack, and you take that multivitamin pack. If it changes the color of your urine, your body is excreting what it doesn't recognize. So you don't want to have expensive, colorful urine, though it might be neat to look at. It's not neat for your body. Now, contrast that approach to go to the salad bar and go get build the most amazing salad you can imagine with all the ingredients. It will not change your urine color at all, but you just ate a multivitamin. One form your body recognizes and absorbs readily. Another form, the handful of multivitamins, your body doesn't know what to do with that because it doesn't recognize it. And so what does it do? It absorbs a little and flushes the rest. So your goal is not to create really pretty, expensive urine. Your goal is to create really pretty, amazing functioning cells, which is why food is a much better alternative than vitamins. But in the situation where you were talking about essential vitamins, like vitamin C, vitamin D, your body has a choice. You have a choice. Food is a better alternative than supplements.
Yeah, absolutely. So guys, if you're one of the really smart people that's using vitamin C, it's part of your, proactive way of, helping your immune system. Love to hear about it in the comment section. Raise your hand, put your favorite emoji. Maybe an orange would be a good one to put in the comment section. Yeah, for vitamin C. So now let's move on to the second top one that we mentioned here is vitamin D.
Vitamin D is an awesome vitamin. It's also an essential vitamin. But vitamin D kind of doesn't really perform the way other normal, not want to say normal, they're all normal, other vitamins do. Vitamin D
but the way that people normally think about it, maybe.
Like just the nutrient part of it. Vitamin D acts more like a hormone. Vitamin D actually does lots of things. it kind of orchestrates a lot of the way it provides many different remedies to the functioning of your immune system, and especially your innate and your adapted or acquired immune system. Vitamin D is a very key nutrient, but it doesn't typically act like other vitamins, though it is an essential vitamin. It acts more like a hormone in regulating the chemical reactions, specifically the chemical reactions, the enzymatic reactions that happen inside your body.
You know what? And it was interesting because as we were researching this, wasn't it like 300 different hormones or something like that, that vitamin D really?
No, that's actually zinc.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
I'm getting confused here. That's why I'm not the doctor. That's why we're having the conversation with the doctor, right? So awesome. So vitamin C, vitamin D so far. What were you going to say about? And
No,
it's what?
no, go.
Okay. So those are the first two of the three most commonly searched out vitamins or supplements, right? So the third one is zinc. So can you tell us why zinc is so important?
Zinc is pretty amazing. So zinc zinc is actually required for the activity of over 300 enzymes inside your body. It's also linked to over 1,000 proteins inside your body, and how these proteins work. Proteins act, consider a protein like a key in a lock. You can have the right key and it unlocks the lock, or you don't have the right key. Proteins and enzymes are very important in all the chemical reactions that happen inside your body. And zinc is a very, very diverse nutrient. It works in a lot of different ways to support your innate immunity, your adaptive immunity, and the barrier function of your immunity. Zinc is a very, very powerful one.
Wow, that's awesome. So it covers all three.
It does.
Wow, that's so cool. Okay, so that's what most people are really going out and searching for. But like Don D said, they're coming up against some walls and some difficulties in necessarily finding it on store shelves because everybody's looking for it. And something else I was thinking about is there's so many brands out there. Which one do you choose? Really, how much do you take of it? So that's some of the difficulties that some people are coming up against.
Well, it's a good thing you mentioned that too, because sometimes what they call the RDA, the recommended daily or the recommended daily allowance or whatever, the percentage, and sometimes you'll see percentage of whatever that RDA is. That has to do with that nutrient specifically and your body's overall need of that nutrient. It's not always and very rarely is it directly applied to the immune function specifically of your body. So you can actually take less of that 100% requirement that it takes to boost your immune system, and then take the rest for your overall cell signaling or your overall cell functioning. Speaking of cell signaling, cell signaling is how cells communicate to one another. And zinc plays a very, very powerful role in that, specifically due to the protein reaction. So cell signaling is kind of like, if you ever took a psychology class and you had 10 people lined up and the instructor whispers something into the ear of the one person, then that person whispers it into the ear of the other person, and it goes all the way down the line. If cell signaling is perfect, which is how cells want it to be, the instructor's message on one end will be the same exact message that comes out the other end. But due to inefficiency in cell signaling, sometimes it's so different than what the instructor whispered into the first person, and the ninth person whispered in the ear of the 10th person. That's what made it fun in participation, because it was always funny, like, that's what I said, but when it got down to that part, you've got 9 different interpretations of what I said, and it's sometimes so different. That is the limitation of cell signaling. When cell signaling is perfect, and it's in the right environment, it's got the right nutrients to do that, the overall reaction or functioning in this case of your immune system is it does what it's supposed to do. But to the point in that example, when it's not, the message that gets out the other end is that's a bad guy, but it turns out to be your normal healthy cells. That's what we call an autoimmune disorder. When cell signaling is not efficient, and we have an immune response that is inefficient when it attacks itself or attacks something that shouldn't be attacked. Wow. It's an error in cell signaling, and having the proper nutrients, having the proper key makeup of the ingredients that goes into a fully functioning immune system like zinc is very, very important.
So I just had a little bit of a rabbit type distraction thought. It's like, we're talking here about, the doctor is having the conversation today and sharing this information, and I'm the layperson asking some questions and not quite understanding everything that he knows, right? Well, when you were using that example of the psychology class and 10 people standing in line, I hope I'm not the only one that was thinking, it's like, hey, that sounds like kindergarten and the telephone game to me.
I never
So
had, what's the telephone game? That's new
the
to me.
exact same thing as what you were doing,
Oh.
you know, yeah, you stand in line and you share the, okay, so
Okay.
back on track here with the cell signaling though, that's like a really big deal.
It's a huge deal.
Right? And
Yeah.
so if our cells aren't talking to each other properly, it can create all kinds of havoc inside of our bodies. But when we're talking about the immune system, and now we've talked about C, D, and zinc that can help with that. But what if there's things that can actually help you optimize that signaling and that communication and the support of your immune system? Because there are other things out there. And, you know, one of these things we're going to talk about, many of you might have heard of it.
The word's getting out.
Yeah, and a few of you may even be using it. But then there's one that most of you will not even have a clue about. So the one that you might have heard about and might be using, right, is elderberry. Tell us about elderberry.
Elderberry's been used medicinally and for health reasons for literally thousands of years. But elderberry has a very, and most recently in the form of preventing colds and flus, or, you know, your first sign of sniffles, drink some elderberry syrup or eat some elderberry jam or whatever the case may be. It takes some elderberry tablets. I mean, it comes in multi different forms as far as the delivery system, but it's a very, very powerful nutrient. And it's a fruit. Elderberry is a fruit. It's actually come from the Sambuca family of bushes or trees. It gets about 6 feet tall, typically at its highest rate, if you're looking at the tree variety of that black elderberry. But that makes up compounds, and we call those compounds phytonutrients. So elderberry, when you break it into its compounds, which are called phytonutrients, they act as something which they create a response. They create a chemical response in your body and specifically facilitate something called cytokines. Cytokines are like chemical messengers. And so consider cytokines like the Wi-Fi system of your immune system. So, and those are the ones that they're like floating around in your blood, and they're looking for bacteria, they're looking for viruses, they're looking for foreign invaders, they're looking for things that just shouldn't be there. And when they see one, consider cytokines like the Paul Revere of your immune system. They see a foreign invader and they say, hey, you know, this is the example in US history. Paul Revere was somebody who said the British are coming, and sounded the alarm that we're being invaded by the British. That's what happens inside your cells with cytokines. It's kind of like the Wi-Fi system of your immune system. So one of them sees it and triggers the alarm, and now they're all on heightened alert. And in the response, so that's a cytokine. So a variation of a cytokine is called a chemokine. It's kind of like a beacon, a chemical beacon, if you've ever heard of pheromones, where it's kind of like a scent that these immune cells, these white blood cells like neutrophils or macrophages, they will follow this chemical trail of what are called chemokines, which are being now triggered onto the invader, whether it's a virus or a bacteria, and they will literally dogpile on it and they will consume it and kill it. That's part of the immune system. So it's elderberry is very good at that because it produces these compounds that release these cytokines, which are chemical messengers, kind of marking the invader. So it's kind of like shining a beacon, chemical beacon on the bad guy, and all the blood cells, or all the specific blood cells for that, are going to go after it and kill it. Okay, I totally want cytokines on my team. Yes. On my side, fighting for my immune system. Oh my gosh, heck yes. Cytokines, those are my buddies. They're powerful. Yes. Okay, so I love that. So we've actually purchased elderberry in like a jelly form and used it in a jam, before. And so there are different ways that you can get it out there, but it delicious. Can be, it is, but it can also be really expensive. It is. It was spendy. It definitely was. Yeah. And it's really kind of cumbersome. I had to keep it in the freezer, but it was awesome. I'm not complaining by any stretch of the imagination, but we'll do what we have to do, right? To have the immune system to benefit ratio. Yeah. So, and the benefit is a healthy immune system. So we want to support that. And then being proactive in it. Yeah. And then the last way that we're going to talk about today, and this is one that I will bet that very, very few of you have ever heard about before. I had never thought about it. I thought it was only used for making bread, type of thing, or something that I want to raise in the oven or whatever, donuts or beer, that kind of thing. But how about fermented yeast extract? Yeah. What is that, and why is it important? No, it's not brewer's yeast. No, it's not. No. But if you haven't heard it yet, you will hear it. Maybe you haven't heard it heard about it yet in the form of fermented yeast extract. But if you've ever heard of the term prebiotic, we started getting familiar with the term probiotic.
Right.
And then once we kind of adopted that and understood what the benefits of taking these probiotics and getting more bacteria into our digestive system was, then we started hearing about prebiotic. Prebiotic is the food for the probiotic, so that actually it fortifies the probiotic. Well, now at the other end of that spectrum is postbiotic. So fermented yeast extract is a postbiotic. So if you've ever heard of postbiotics, then you're probably understanding now, or what it is, and why is it important? Why is it an important part of this conversation? So the probiotics are the bacteria, the healthy bacteria that help your gut system, your GI tract, your microbiome, whatever terminology you're using, to be more efficient, so that it's helping break down your food so that you can absorb that food and get the nutritional benefit from your food. But sometimes your probiotics will be eating your lunch that you are supposed to be eating, which is where prebiotics come in. Prebiotics are generally fiber. They're the food source of the probiotic. Well, postbiotic is literally the waste products of the metabolizing of the prebiotic by the probiotic. So before I confuse you too much, think of it this way, that the prebiotic is the food for the probiotic, and the postbiotic is the waste products. Consider it like probiotic farts, I guess is a way to look at it. But not in the sense that it's like, ooh, that's stinky, that's bad. It's actually, fart wasn't a good reference.
Okay, let's just
consider it the waste products that is beneficial to the overall functioning of your probiotic and ultimately your microbiome system. It's the fermentation process.
So let's see if I'm thinking this correctly in my normal person brain.
Okay.
So postbiotics could actually be setting the environment for the prebiotic, which is the food, for the probiotic, which is the healthy organisms inside of our gut that helps everything get digested and so that we can absorb it and use it. Maybe putting the prebiotics in the mood and the probiotics setting the environment, for the foreplay.
Okay. Okay.
I'm just trying to.
It's the fertilizer made by the probiotic.
Okay.
Is what postbiotic is.
Okay, so.
But it's
diversity.
Why it's important to your overall barrier system. Now, this is where the key role about barrier is, because if you think about your immune system, and this is something that maybe not a lot of people know, is that about 40 to 45% of your immune system strength comes from a normal functioning GI tract or a normally functioning intestine system. And when you don't have normally functioning intestines, and how do we know that we don't? If you've been on a round of antibiotics within the last year, you probably don't have a normally functioning intestinal tract. So that's because antibiotics kill all the bacteria. That sets up the environment for bad things to come in and invade, leading to things like all kinds of irritable bowel syndrome, leaky gut syndrome, Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, all kinds of other things that you may hear from things. I mean, just intestinal based stuff are much more likely to happen when there's not a good environment in there of a barrier, a good barrier. A good barrier keeps out the bad guys. And so the way to make that is proper nutrition, first and foremost, building blocks of your body, proper hydration, and then focusing on functioning, strengthening your functioning immune system. The things that we've been talking about, and the thing that most people overlook, which is why I'm glad you mentioned it first, but it's the barrier part of your immune system. Why is it so critical? Because about 40 to 45% of your immune system comes from your intestines, and focusing on the barrier of your intestines, which postbiotics, or in this case, we're talking specifically about an ingredient, fermented yeast extract, plays such a key role in this entire healing system of your immune system.
So, okay, so now we've talked about 5 different ingredients or 5 different vitamins or things that you can utilize to help increase your immune system. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's 5 products. That's 5 things sitting on the counter, or that's 5 products,
yes.
And again, knowing which product to buy, how much to use of each one, brand. Then it starts to become almost like a job. And so we can totally see why so many people don't go the proactive route.
Or the other thing is confusion.
Yeah.
Because this is the thing. There's no normal on how do you use the combination of these 5 ingredients. There's recommendations on each of the individual ingredients individually, but nothing as a combination. Now with the top 3, you can find combinations of C, D, and zinc because they are the top 3. But the other layer of effectiveness, the other layer of cell signaling, the other layer of cellular communication, when we talked about that, again, that example of talking to 10 people getting the same message, is where the elderberry and the fermented yeast extract come in and just give an exclamation point to how this works. Getting all 5 together in a single environment with a single dose, with a recommendation, with an exact application, it's not out there.
No.
Until now.
Well, it really is, because we have actually learned of a new product that we're using ourselves and are actually representing. And so we actually have a special offer for you guys today. We normally don't do this, but we really wanted you to know that you can have this be a really, it's a really simple application to increasing your immune system with these 5 to thrive ingredients that is truly a way that you can drink your way to a healthy day. And it's called Daily Wellness. And so what we wanted to do today is we have this idea that we would love if you are interested in learning more about daily wellness and go to our website, dondiandmarcy.com. We now have an option on there that is /raffle. We want you to put your information in and enter our raffle so that you can win a 30-day supply, a free tub of daily wellness. It's simple, it's easy, it tastes great, and it's something that you just drink down, which talk about the drinking aspect of it. Because liquid form, the absorption.
It comes down to absorbability, or what is called bioavailability. How available is whatever you're taking? So tablets and capsules are the worst. At the very top, injections are the best because it's injected right. It gets through the first line of defense, the skin, and is injected directly into your body. But there's also things like skin patches, which absorb through that first layer. There's sublingual drops you put under your tongue. Liquids are by far the most absorbable. So when you take a powder and this is why buying it in a liquid form involves much bigger volume, which is weight, much bigger cost of a container, which means much more of a cost to you, the consumer. When it's powder and you add it to whatever liquid you want to, it significantly cuts the cost down, but it makes it user-friendly because sometimes you can't take a week's worth of liquid. Let's say you're traveling somewhere. It would become now, how do you get it through TSA if it's over 2 ounces? When something is in powder form, it's easy, it's convenient, and it's travel worthy. And it's a daily part of your regimen, which is why we love it. Take a little scoop, put it in our case, water, shake it up, and now you're drinking your way because it's now liquid, which means absorbing into your cells and the immediate benefit. And the cool thing about it, within 2 hours, it has been scientifically shown to have a positive benefit on your immune system within 2 hours.
Yeah.
That's powerful. In fact, on that 5th ingredient we talked about, that fermented yeast extract, there's 7 preclinical scientific studies on it and 8 human trials.
This is huge, guys.
8 human studies on the benefits of this single ingredient, which is kind of the icing on the cake, that postbiotic, which is now becoming, well, even prebiotic and probiotic, definitely people have heard. Postbiotic, not so much. It's a new thing, but there's science behind it. It's not just our opinions, but it has been our experience where we go, oh my gosh, we are taking a very proactive approach to health anyway. But adding this one thing into our daily regimen has made a major, major difference.
Seriously. And, personal experience from using this product along with our probio and prebiotic product, previously, gut health has not been top for me. And I am regular, and that's a big deal. So that's as far as we'll go with that, because that can be TMI. But if you have any issues with that, this is something you definitely want to look into. Yeah, because it's such a big deal, and so many people deal with that issue. So guys, again, go to dondiandmarcy.com/raffle to enter. We'll be doing this drawing next Friday or just before episode number 17. So you have 1 week's time to be able to get your entry in, as well as to share this episode out with all of your family and friends. Give them the opportunity also to win, because this is going to be a really cool thing. And it's just the first of many raffles that we plan on having coming in the future. So anything you want to say to round out the importance of being proactive in your immunity, supporting that superhero of your immune system, and how people can be most optimized?
And I guess it would just be this, the challenge to each of you individually. You may be thinking, well, I don't feel anything, so why would I need to do it now? Some of us think, well, it happens to everybody, but it's not going to happen to me. We think sometimes we're the exception. And that's awesome until you're not.
Yeah.
And so it helps people. It works for people until it doesn't. So it would be much better to be proactive, because sometimes people think of the cost. Well, oh my gosh, will it cost that? Well, how much does recovery cost? How much does, God forbid,
visits,
terminal illness treatment cost? So it's not so much, I kind of liken it to, I remember back in the 80s and 90s, and may even still be, but Fram oil filters, their whole purpose of their commercial was you can pay us now, small, or pay us later, much bigger. It's easier to maintain your engine, change the oil, put good gasoline. We understand it in a car reference, but sometimes we don't apply it to our own lives.
Right.
You're living in the only body you will ever have. Would you rather take care of it while it's still performing, or try to spend all kinds of money to do your best to get it back to the way it was, which sometimes is too late. So it's really a choice, being proactive or reactive. The choice is in fact yours. But you have to ask yourself, would it be better to take a daily, to Marcy's point, consistent approach to my health and wellness every day to make it more predictable, or play the odds? That's a question only you can answer. But I would invite you to be proactive and then predict your longevity, rather than, is it today's the day that I get a bad diagnosis, or today the day something's going to happen?
No.
Don't play that game.
No, absolutely not. So dondiandmarcy.com/raffle to get your opportunity to win.
Give you some free stuff.
Free daily wellness. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us today on episode number 14.
Yes.
Your proactive health, your proactive wellness, all focusing around your mighty immune system.
Yeah.
So guys, thanks again for joining us. We appreciate you. Share this out. Go and subscribe at Dondi and Marcy Nettles on our YouTube channel. And guys, would always love a good old review on our podcast.
That'd be awesome.
Well.
We'd appreciate it. Help us get to 1,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel too, guys. We'd appreciate it.
We're so close.
So close.
All right.
Have a great weekend. We'll see you for episode 15 on Monday. God bless you guys.